Right. So today we're going to be looking at Archean Chemical Industries. They just released their Q3 FY25 financials, and we've got, a whole bunch of reports and questions here to kind of dig into.
Yeah, definitely a lot to unpack.
Yeah. So,
And, we're not just crunching numbers here, right?
right.
We're trying to figure out, you know, what does all of this mean for Archean's future?
Yeah, exactly.
So are you with me?
I am all in.
Let's go. All right, so you might know Archean for their work in marine chemicals, but these reports, they hint that there's something much bigger going on.
Okay, so before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's talk about these numbers first. So they posted a standalone profit after tax of 562.87 crore
Right.
and a consolidated profit of 478.23 crore for Q3.
Yep.
So can you just break that down for me? What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so standalone profit, that's basically looking at Archean just by itself.
Okay.
It's their performance as a single entity.
Got it.
Whereas consolidated profit, that brings in all their subsidiaries, all the other companies under their umbrella.
I see.
So that 562.87 crore standalone, that's how Archean itself did.
Okay.
And the 478.23 crore consolidated, that factors in all their other ventures as well.
Gotcha. So are these numbers, good, bad? Like, how do they stack up against last year?
Well, their revenue is up 45% year on year,
Oh, wow.
which is a really good sign.
Okay.
But there is this kind of weird thing where their standalone profit actually bipped a little compared to Q3 of last year, FY24.
A dip in profit, even though the revenue went up?
Yeah.
That doesn't usually happen.
Yeah, it's unusual, right? So we got to figure out what's going on there.
Yeah.
And the reports, they point to something called an exceptional item,
Exceptional item.
which is basically accountant speak
Okay.
for a one-off event that messed with their financials.
All right.
And in this case, it's a pretty big write-off, 401.83 crore.
Whoa.
And it's all tied to this land lease agreement that actually expired way back in 2018.
Oh, wow. So a land lease issue from 2018 is coming back to bite them in 2025.
Yeah, it does seem kind of strange, right?
Yeah. What's the deal with that?
So the management is saying, don't worry.
Okay.
We're confident we're going to get this lease renewed.
All
They're
right.
saying it's a one-time thing.
Yeah.
They even mentioned some government circular that suggests that these leases can be extended for up to 30 years.
Interesting.
But, it does make you think a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there are some long-term things we should be considering here with their asset management.
Definitely something to keep in mind as we move forward.
For sure.
Okay, so let's move on to something a bit more, future-looking.
Yeah.
Archean's acquisitions and investments. They've been making some pretty bold moves lately.
Yeah, they have.
So tell me about that.
So they acquired this company. Ideal is Michemi.
Oh.
It was formerly known as Orin Hydrocarbons.
Okay.
And then they've also invested in two other companies.
Okay.
Classic Wafer Fab, which is a semiconductor company. And then Off-Grid Energy Labs, which is focused on zinc bromide batteries.
So semiconductors and batteries?
Yeah.
That seems like a kind of random mix.
It does seem that way at first glance, right?
Yeah.
But there's actually a really clever strategy going on here.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's all about vertical integration.
Vertical integration.
Think about it. All of these companies, they all need specialized chemicals.
Right.
And who's the perfect company to provide those chemicals?
Archean?
Exactly. They're weaving themselves into the supply chain of these booming industries.
So instead of just selling chemicals, they're becoming a part of, the whole ecosystem for these new technologies.
Exactly.
But why these specific industries, semiconductors and batteries, are pretty far from marine chemicals?
Right. And that's where things get really interesting because these industries, they're at the forefront of this global push towards sustainability.
Right.
And Archean is positioning themselves to ride that wave.
Okay. I am very interested to hear more about this. So let's unpack that a bit further.
Yeah.
Tell me more about these industries and why Archean's involvement is so significant.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So let's start with semiconductors. They're basically the brains of all of our electronics.
Right.
And as our world, keeps getting more and more digital,
Yeah.
they're only becoming more important.
Okay, that makes sense. But I'm still not sure how that connects to sustainability.
Yeah.
I mean, aren't electronics kind of energy hungry by nature?
Well, they can be, but the key here is efficiency.
Okay.
So more efficient semiconductors, that means that our devices use less power,
Right.
which in turn, means we're using less energy overall.
Okay, I see.
And that's where Archean's investment in Classic Wafer Fab comes in.
So tell me about Classic Wafer Fab. What makes them so special in the semiconductor world?
Yeah, so they specialize in Silicon carbide semiconductors.
Silicon carbide.
Yeah, it's a newer type of semiconductor material, and it's more efficient than the traditional silicon semiconductors because it can handle higher temperatures and voltages.
Okay.
So they lose less energy as heat, which makes them perfect for things like electric vehicles and power grids.
I see. So even if we use more and more devices, the energy each device consumes could actually go down because of these advancements.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But where does Archean fit into all this? Are they making semiconductors now?
Not exactly, but they're using their expertise in specialty chemicals.
Okay.
So to make these advanced silicon carbide semiconductors, you need very specific high-purity chemicals.
Okay.
And Archean is perfectly positioned to supply them.
There's that vertical integration strategy again.
Yep.
They're not just, investing in the tech. They've
Yeah.
been an essential part of actually making it.
Right.
Okay. But what's so special about Archean's chemicals?
Yeah.
I mean, couldn't other chemical companies do the same thing?
That's a good question. So Archean has spent decades perfecting the production of high-purity chemicals
Okay.
for really demanding applications, like think marine chemicals.
Yeah.
So that gives them a real advantage when it comes to meeting the very strict requirements of the semiconductor industry.
So it's not just being in the right place at the right time, it's having the know-how to actually do it.
Right.
This is starting to feel like a really smart move on their part.
Sure.
Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about their other big investment,
Okay.
off-grid energy labs and zinc bromide batteries.
Yeah, zinc bromide batteries. So energy storage is another area where there's a ton of innovation happening.
Right, because the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow.
Exactly.
We need somewhere to put that energy.
Yep. And that's why we need efficient and affordable ways to store all that energy.
But aren't lithium-ion batteries already like the big player in the energy storage market?
They are, but they do have their drawbacks. They're expensive to make.
Okay.
They can be prone to overheating and fires.
Right.
And they rely on some materials that have, environmental and ethical concerns.
Yeah.
So zinc bromide batteries, they offer like a really promising alternative.
Okay, I'm listening.
Mm-hmm.
What are their advantages?
So first of all, they're much cheaper to produce than lithium-ion batteries. They're also non-flammable and non-toxic. So they're safer and more environmentally friendly.
So cheaper, safer, and more environmentally friendly. That sounds almost too good to be true. What's the catch?
Well, there's always going to be challenges with new technologies, right?
Right.
So zinc bromide batteries, they're not as energy dense as lithium-ion batteries.
Okay.
So they can't store quite as much energy in the same amount of space.
Gotcha.
However, they're really well suited for stationary applications, like grid-scale energy storage,
Okay.
or powering homes and businesses, where size isn't as much of a constraint.
So there are trade-offs, but the potential benefits are pretty huge.
Definitely.
Where does Archean come into this? Are they making these batteries?
Similar to their strategy with semiconductors, Archean is being that crucial chemical supplier.
Okay.
So zinc bromide batteries, they need these specialized electrolytes and other chemical components, and Archean has that expertise to deliver them.
Okay, so I'm seeing a pattern here. Invest in innovative companies and then become their go-to supplier for all those essential chemicals.
Yep.
It's like they figured out how to capitalize on these emerging sustainable technologies.
It's a brilliant strategy, and it lines up perfectly with this global shift towards a more sustainable future.
Yeah.
And as the demand for these technologies grows, so does Archean's potential.
It's really amazing to see a company like Archean, known for marine chemicals,
Right.
transforming themselves into this key player in these really critical industries.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, are there any risks involved?
Yeah.
It all sounds very promising.
Yeah.
But what could potentially throw a wrench in their plans? It does feel like they're doing everything right.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. There are always risks. What are some of the things that could go wrong?
Well, for one, they got to be able to execute this plan, right? Can they actually integrate these new businesses into how they already do things?
Yeah.
Can they scale up production of all these specialized chemicals fast enough to keep up with demand? It's a lot to handle.
It is. It's like they're juggling like 5 balls at once.
Totally.
Yeah.
And one little slip up could mess everything up. Plus, we can't forget about the competition.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Archean isn't the only company that sees these opportunities.
Okay.
Other big chemical companies are also investing in this stuff.
Yeah.
So it could get pretty competitive.
So it's not enough to just be in the right place at the right time. They have to actually beat out their rivals.
Exactly. They got to prove they're the best.
Right.
And then there's the whole thing about, What if some crazy new technology comes out of nowhere?
Right.
Like imagine some new battery tech that's even better than zinc bromide,
Oh, wow.
or something that makes silicon carbide obsolete.
Right. They can't just rest on their laurels.
Nope, they got to keep innovating to stay ahead of the game.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've got execution and competition and the possibility of being disrupted.
Yeah.
But is there anything else?
Well, there's another piece of the puzzle that we haven't really talked about yet.
Okay, what's that?
Geopolitics.
Oh, interesting. Okay, lay it on me.
So remember how we were saying that silicon carbide is more efficient? Well, it turns out it's not just good for like electric cars and phones.
Oh,
It's also super important for defense and aerospace.
really? So the same stuff that's making my phone use less battery is going into fighter jets and satellites.
Exactly. Because it can handle those crazy high temperatures and voltages.
Wow.
And that's where geopolitics comes in. Countries are starting to realize that this silicon carbide tech,
Yeah.
it's crucial for national security.
Oh, wow. So it's not just about making money. It's about, who has the technological advantage.
Totally. Now, India, where Archean is based,
Right.
they've been trying really hard to build up their own semiconductor industry.
Yeah.
They want to be less reliant on other countries for this technology, and they want to be a bigger player on the world stage.
Okay.
And Archean's investment in classic wafer fab, that fits in perfectly with India's plans.
So Archean's kind of helping India become more independent when it comes to technology?
That's one way to look at it. And it's not just India that's paying attention. China is also investing heavily in semiconductors. So there's this kind of competition brewing between the two.
So Archean is caught in the middle of this technological arms race.
In a way, yeah. They've become a key player in this really strategic industry.
Right.
And that could give them a lot of leverage. Governments might be more likely to support companies that are helping them advance technologically.
It's amazing how these decisions that seem like they're just about business
Right.
can actually have these huge geopolitical consequences.
For sure. It's all connected, but it's not just semiconductors, right?
Yeah. What about these zinc bromide batteries?
Good point. You got to have reliable energy storage for military operations, too.
Right.
So if a country can make its own advanced batteries,
Yeah.
they don't have to rely on other countries, especially if there's like a conflict or something.
So Archean could be giving India a strategic advantage in both the economic and military sense.
Potentially. Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
It is. It's like business and technology and geopolitics are all tangled up together.
Exactly. It's a complex world out there.
It is. So we've talked about a lot today. We looked at their financials, those land lease issues, those acquisitions, and even geopolitics. What are the main things you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that Archean is changing. They're
Right.
not just a marine chemical company anymore.
Yeah.
They're going after new opportunities. And they're putting themselves right at the front of the line when it comes to sustainable tech.
Right. And that stuff has global implications.
Totally. It shows you that you can't just look at the numbers by themselves.
Right.
You got to understand the bigger picture, what's happening in the world, the long-term trends, all of it.
It's all connected.
It is. And who knows what's next? Could this Indian company that most people know for marine chemicals, could they actually become a global leader in sustainable tech?
Wow.
Could they be a major force in how global power shifts? It's a fascinating story to watch unfold.
It really is.
Yeah.
A story full of potential and risks and all sorts of complexities. It just goes to show that the business world is never boring.
That's for sure.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking questions. The world is full of surprises.